All right. Thank you everyone so much for joining us for our STC Florida Employment Panel. This is an event we do typically every March. It's an annual tradition where we bring together hiring managers to answer questions about what's going on in the field, what they look for in candidates, and what are some of those nitty-gritty questions you have about getting hired or changing jobs. So our agenda is pretty straightforward. We just had our networking time from 6:30 to 7. Just going to do a little bit of welcome and announcements, and then I've got some prepared questions for some moderated Q&A, and then after that, we'll open it up for your questions. If you have questions along the way, feel free to put those in the chat. I think Julia and I will both be keeping an eye on that. Julia probably will be better at it than me. She's very good at keeping track of the questions in the chat, and we'll do our best to get everything answered before we close out later in the evening. So, welcome from the STC Florida chapter. My name is Bethany Aguad. I am the president of the chapter. We're glad you're here. We are the Florida chapter of the Society for Technical Communication. So, we're here to advance the theory of practice of technical communication in our state, but also beyond, especially now that we're all so connected remotely. STC at large is the world's largest and oldest profession dedicated or association dedicated to the profession of technical communication. And we have members who work in all different industries and roles, everybody from academics to practitioners, and in every different industry you can imagine. So our chapter's been around since 1977, and we're here to provide an outlet for networking, fellowship, education, and just sharing with like-minded people, the other people who care about things like white space and the Oxford comma that's very near and dear to our hearts. So we're very glad you're here to join us tonight. Just a bit about some opportunities coming up. If you are not a member of STC and you'd like to join, we'd love to have you. You can go to stc.org to sign up, or if you just wanted to join but haven't renewed yet, there's still time. You're welcome to join at any point. You can go on the STC website, and if you have any questions, you're welcome to reach out to me, or you can put questions in the chat if things come up along the way, like I mentioned. I put my email in there. For anyone who has tried to reach out to me on LinkedIn, just as a heads up, LinkedIn has kicked me out temporarily and says that I have to prove that I'm a person by uploading my actual ID. So if you've sent me a LinkedIn connection, I will get back to you as soon as I get back into LinkedIn. So feel free to reach out to me by email. I promise I am a real person. I'm not going to show my ID on this call on the recording, though. That feels a little bit too, too bold. I'm going to hand it to Julia real quick to talk a little bit about memo to members.
Um, we have our newsletter memo to members, and I'd be happy to publish anything you write for me. And if you need ideas, check out our ideas page, which I have linked in the comment in the chat.
Thanks, Julia. Julia is wonderful to work with if you're looking to build your portfolio, your experience, and improve your search engine optimization, if that's also on your list of goals for yourself, to get some more things out there related to the profession. So last but certainly not least, we do have volunteer roles open. So we have volunteers right now who are working on like our policies and procedures for someone who wants a really good writing sample to put in their portfolio. If you're looking to build your leadership experience, that's certainly how I got to the job I'm in today, was not just through my work, but also through my time in STC and the connections I built there. So if you're interested in, giving back to our community, the profession, or just somewhere else that we can help you, feel free to let us know in the chat or reach out to us by email. And I would certainly be remiss if I didn't mention that the STC Summit is coming up. I put in Minneapolis. I believe technically it's in Bloomington. I think John was calling it Bloomingdale or Blooming something else. We had a variety of different names, but just outside of Minneapolis, right by the Mall of America. This is the annual conference, which was virtual for a bit during the pandemic, but back in person now. So it's the conference for technical communication for those who are interested in education and networking. For me, it's also a great place to get to see people in person that I only talk to on calls or online throughout the course of the year. And they have posted the schedule for the summit. So I will put that in the chat if you're interested in seeing what kind of sessions there are. I will, small plug, Julie and I, along with my friend Rachel Swartfeger, are doing a session on there about how tabletop gaming can help you hone your tech com skills. We did a presentation on this last year for the chapter, and we submitted for the summit. They asked us if we could do a 2-hour interactive session. So if that sounds interesting to you and you want to spend 2 hours with us learning how to build your tech com skills through gaming, we'll look forward to having you there at the summit. Otherwise, we'll tell you how it went afterwards. We still have to figure out what we're doing for the entire 2 hours, but it's going to be a good time. So I also want to put on here, I know this is our employment panel, and I would not want to fail to mention our employment chair, Nicole Lindquist, is always here to help. She posts jobs on LinkedIn. Nicole, I didn't know if you had anything else you wanted to share. I put Nicole on the spot. So if you are not connected with Nicole on LinkedIn, I strongly encourage you to do so. She posts jobs from across our network, and she's also happy to talk about where you are in your career, what you're looking for. We know it's a tough job market out there for those who are searching, and there's no guarantees in life or anything that will definitely work to get you a job, but we want to do what we can to help. So feel free to reach out to Nicole. I'll put that information in the chat later as well. So I figured let's get right in. We have our wonderful panelists. Panelists, let me make sure I'm spotlighting your videos so that everyone will see you while I introduce you. All right. So, panelists, I'm just going to introduce you by name real quick, and then I'll have a slide and we'll go around the room so you can give a little more detail about yourselves. But we have Ryan Armstrong back again with STC Florida, reminding me that it's been over a decade since the first STC presentation he did for us on campus at UCF. And he is now the senior manager of the developer experience at Pismo, if I got that right. Then we have Wendy Hurst, my former manager, who is working at Sagent as the manager of documentation, and Patrick Green, who's a technical documentation manager at Lockheed Martin. I think someone who might be close to logging the most STC presentations now that we're thinking about the math, as he's come back to do this panel for us every year for, I think we decided 5 years running.
I think 5 years is right.
Yeah, well, glad you keep coming back and putting up with us and our questions. So for our panelists, I'll call on you. I think we'll just go in the same order as on the last slide, but just current location, your company and your role, anything you want to share there beyond what was mentioned in your title, and maybe just a brief review of some of your career experience. What are the highlights? So I will go to Ryan first.
Okay. Currently located in Atlanta, Georgia, just north of Atlanta. The company I work for is based out of, or used to be the company I work for, based out of Brazil, but we're now part of Visa. So, but I still report through Brazil. Career experience. I think my first tech writing job was in 93 or 94. Yeah, 94, I guess. Wow. It's been a long time. I
Say,
was an
no,
intern. Yeah, so sorry.
no, guys, I was just saying anyone who was born after 94, just don't tell us who are
Yeah,
who are here on the
yeah,
call.
exactly. So yeah, so from being starting out as a tech writing intern all the way through being a manager, I've gone through the marketing side with different industries, and now I have landed in solidly in developer relations and developer documentation, where we support a developer portal for APIs. So gone super tech, but it still has the same backbone as traditional documentation.
All right, thank you, Ryan. Wendy, if you don't mind going next.
Sure. Yeah. Hi, I'm Wendy Hurst, and I am located in South Bend, Indiana. So that's the northern part of the state, not too far from Chicago, if that might be a more recognizable spot. So I work for Sagent. It's a software company for the mortgage lending industry, and I currently manage our documentation team, technical writers, publishers, editing. We kind of do a wide range of tasks. And I've been with the company for, gosh, over 30 years, but over that time, I spent a few years in marketing, working in that kind of role, and then back into documentation and technical communication. And probably the biggest thing that keeps it new is just the set of products that changes for us as we develop new things, or the company perhaps purchases a new product. We keep adding to our set and our work, so that keeps things fresh and new and exciting.
I'm glad it's still fresh and new and exciting. I
Yeah,
felt like things changed its agent every 6 months when I was
it
there.
does change. That's right.
All right, Patrick, tell us about yourself.
So I'm currently located in Chattanooga, Tennessee, but my team that I lead is based in Orlando, Florida, for Lockheed Martin on the east side over by UCF for people that are familiar with that. My current role is I'm the manager of the technical documentation team there at RMS. Currently have about 25 people on the team. And then a brief review of my career. I'm a retired Marine, did 21 years in the Marine Corps. I've been with Lockheed for 23 years, my current role for 9.5 years. Prior to that, I was a logistics project manager. I spent time as a tech writer, provisioner, field service rep, trainer. I've done lots of things at Lockheed.
You've seen it all
Mm-hmm.
at this point. All right. Well, we're going to go on to some prepared questions I have. I just like to kind of prime the pump and ask some of the things that often come up during these sessions. Like I mentioned before, for folks, if you have questions along the way, feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll either grab them now or when we have our open Q&A later. So, one of the first questions I like to ask people is, what key traits or skills do you prioritize when evaluating candidates for technical communication roles? I would say beyond writing, editing. What are the things that stand out to you?
Well, I would say just interpersonal skills. Someone who is able to work with others and understand the different ways that people may work. Um, it's very important to know how to build those relationships with your coworkers and the best ways to interact and work with them. So that's a big one for me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big part of your success as a tech writer, being able to get information and share information with people you work with.
Right.
Yeah, Patrick?
Probably an initiative, after they're on the job, but it's accuracy from the resume or attention to detail. If reading the resume and there's one type of dash in one place, a different type of dash in another
You
place,
see
or
that?
spacing, it's really attention to detail on the resume or a writing assignment.
I think that's a good predictor. If your resume is done well, that shows you've put the time in to care about each little piece.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ryan, any thoughts from your experience?
Yeah, I always look for opportunities for problem solving, and uh, if they list, so looking at the resume, you can sometimes see um, how they act under pressure or how they react to problems. But most of that's going to come through the interview. But
Mm-hmm.
um, having problem solving and abilities and doing activities or even hobbies that are problem solving related, I think are really important these days.
Say, because we do a lot of problem solving on the job once we get there, even if we are super well trained, there's always things coming up.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess for the next question, I was going to ask about a standout from a resume or an interview that was memorable. I know it's kind of a broad question. I was going to come back to Patrick first, since you mentioned having like a hyphen that was wrong on a resume. Are those the sort of things that stand out to you that would make you move on from a candidate?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it might lower the chances of actually interviewing that person if their resume is inconsistent. But then one of the things we do with almost or actually all of our candidates is we send them a writing assignment where we
Mhm.
ask them to document a basic process, and we get a good feed or feel from how the people write and from that also. So those are the two big things that we do.
From those writing assignments, is there anything that you can remember that's like a standout or something did something exceptional, or is it really just doing a very good job on it?
There's, exceptional would be using graphics, thinking about, the people put a lot of thought on it where they list the items that are needed to do it. They actually think through it, and it's very structured. Where other ones, you could tell the people don't have a lot of experience of writing procedures. They'll have more than one step in a step. They'll have like do these three things in one section where that really should be three steps. So you can kind of tell the person's experience level from the writing example or assignment really shines a lot of light on the person's current experience level.
Makes me think of all the times I've rewritten recipes because they combine 4 steps into 1 step.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Ryan, did you have a thought to share from your experience?
Yeah, I would say it always stands out when someone builds a resume based on the job posting. If I'm like most hiring managers or ones, or at least in my experience, most hiring managers are responsible for creating the job postings, or at least the meat of it. The stuff at the beginning and the end are always boilerplate, but the bullet points are the things that we care about usually. Um, and I can always tell when they've gone through it and tailored their resume to fit the job. And I appreciate that in a lot of cases. Well, if they are, it's real and it's obvious that it's real. Just hired a new API writer, and there was some. He went through and put exactly how his experience fit the exact role we were looking for. And it was obvious that he did his homework for the company. He did his homework for what the job actually was. So we only went through 2 rounds and hiring really quickly because of things like that.
2 rounds is practically unheard of these days. Yeah, Wendy, how about you? Things that would leave a lasting impression?
Well, I would also say the attention to detail in someone's resume really makes a difference, and making sure, like Ryan said, that it's very applicable to the position they're applying for. Because I know I've gotten resumes that just don't reflect experience that matches the job that we're posting for. So I'm always surprised to receive items like that. But one thing that I always remember is a writing sample. That's always something we ask for our tech writing roles. A writing sample we received was about how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And at first I thought, oh, this is a little goofy, but it was very well done and was very clear and well organized, and and we ended up, really liking and hiring that person. So sometimes taking a little risk like that can have a good impact.
It's just a that's the exact assignment we do with everybody that we bring on as a contractor and intern. I probably have 50 how to make a PBJ procedures.
Oh man, I wonder if what would the like average peanut butter jelly sandwich be if you sort of like, balance them all out, because I have strong feelings about the right amount of peanut butter that I've been told are
It's
wrong.
it's definitely interesting. 1 knife, 2 knives, spoons.
2 knives.
I mean, most of them have separate knives for the peanut butter and the jelly.
Well, maybe that's where I'm going wrong.
Yeah.
So, this next question's a little broad, but it's one that often comes up in this panel. What strategies do you recommend for job seekers when they're looking for a job in tech comm? So it's either how they approach the job search or prepare themselves. What sort of things do you think make people successful? I
Well,
know.
I think like Ryan was saying, really trying to learn a little bit about the company that you're hoping to work for, and understanding the role and making sure that you're prepared to answer questions or provide samples, and that you have the experience that really fits with the job. That makes a big difference to me, and just being able to hear them talk comfortably, um, and interact with someone else. I know today that can be a little bit of a tougher challenge for people, that personal interaction, but I think just making sure someone is comfortable doing that conversation goes a long way.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I remember when I interviewed with you, Wendy, we did a phone interview, just phone, no video. It was a different time.
Right, yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Ryan, do you have some thoughts?
Oh goodness. I know a lot of folks, if they're when they're starting to look for jobs, they do the shotgun method and they really just throw the resume out there to as many openings that are loosely match what they're looking for. And I would always advise people to take a step back and really think about what they want to do. Um, it's one thing to have to pay the bills, but you're really not going to lose too much by taking a couple days to think about the type of job you want and really target the company, target the type of role. Um, TechCom is so broad and so many different disciplines in it. Um, one tech writer for one company might not fit as a tech writer in another company. And I think that you really have to do your research and figure out, are you the type of tech writer that fits in here? Unless you've been in it as long as we have and probably have done all the types, then it's going to be hard to shoehorn yourself into something. Like, for example, we only right now I'm only looking at API writers. Um, Not that a tech writer can't learn it or a traditional tech writer can't learn how to write good API documentation. I just don't have time to train them for that because they have to learn the software and they have to learn what our platform does. So by also having to teach them how to do API documentation, it's just the path for them being useful for us is way too long. Um, so I think we had 400 resumes for the one job, and we only had 3 interviews out of 400 that were qualified, did not have mistakes in their resume, and fit what we were looking for. So it's disappointing. It's hard work for us to do, but when we find what we're looking for and the people really do the effort, then I think it makes the path to hiring a lot shorter.
Yeah, your odds are a lot better at 1 in 3 than 1 in 400, huh?
Yeah.
Uh, Patrick, thoughts on your side? Because I know you hire contractors as well.
Yeah, I do a, a little different. I instead of hiring direct to Lockheed, I only hire contractors. I can have them for up to 18 months, and then it gives
Mhm.
me a time to see how they're doing. If I want to bring them on a full time as a Lockheed, I've done the same thing with interns to contractors to Lockheed employees. Um, it's been a really, really great model. A lot of them, have come directly from UCF predominantly. But as somebody that was just applying, I would, what Ryan and Wendy were saying, make sure that your resume is tailored to the job so that when the people are reading it, they actually, oh, this person fits the thing and is just not a generic resume, which is going to get discarded really quick.
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. I know it's a little extra effort, for
Hmm.
sure, especially if you're applying for different types of jobs. But I think it's definitely something when I've been hiring, I've looked out for as well. So we talked a little bit about what the process is when people are applying. I was going to go to Ryan first and say, could you outline what the application process looks like? So how do you get from 400 to 3 to 1?
On my side,
Yeah,
normally, so um, every every hiring manager is going to be different.
for sure.
I try my best to look. So I always post on LinkedIn that I'm hiring. So anyone who sends me a message saying they're going to submit, they will more than likely get at least a screening call from the HR business partner. But primarily, the HR business partner goes through based on my checklist of things that I want. and will select which ones they're going to put to me to review to see if I want them to go through the phone screen. And the phone screen really is just to double check that they have those things that we require and that the salary is going to be okay for them. And then if there's any kind of legality about working for whatever company or where they live, if they need any kind of visa help or whatever. Um, and then I I try to keep things short because I know personally I hate long interview processes.
Mm-hmm.
So if they make it past that, then I will spend 30 minutes to an hour with them. And then after me, there's usually one round. Um, for the last two hires, there was only one round, and that was a small panel, meaning it was just two of my team who would interview them. And if they got by them, which to me, they're a lot harder than I am, they're a lot tougher on the technical side and making sure they're going to fit side. Then if there are candidates we can't choose from, then we'll do one more round. But the last two times we haven't had to do that. I went through three rounds just because I think they wanted me to meet other people because I, and one thing that people don't do enough of these days, because I think sometimes when we're looking for a job, we'll jump at the first thing that comes our way. You really need to interview your manager and see if that's a person you want to work with. Um, and I think that that's something that is not talked about enough. So I always try to make my interview a conversation with the folks and not a me grilling them for 30 minutes to an hour. I want them to know about me as much as I want to know about them to see if we can work together, not just so that I feel like if they fit, if they're what I'm looking for. Based on their resume, they're probably what I'm looking for because I've gone through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of resumes, and I can usually spot the BS after the first question. So, um, yeah, I
You
think
got a good
that's
filter.
kind of my process. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Wendy, you mind talking through your process? I know you often have done interviews with the team as well for candidates.
Sure, right. Yeah, just very similar to Ryan. We'll have a recruiter. She will do that phone screen up front, just to make sure of those base requirements, salary, etc. And then I'll scan the resumes, of course, and recommend to her who I'd like to have her talk with. And then from there, anybody who meets the criteria, I will spend 30 to 60 minutes interviewing the person. And from there, if I feel like it's a qualified candidate, I always like to have members of my team, either alone or maybe two team members at a time, interview the candidate because I want to get our team's input, make sure that the person would fit and work well with our group. Um, I think that's as important as the technical writing skills and experience. Just knowing that they can work well with our team is important. So our recruiter is typically the person who will then get back to the candidate with any next steps, or she will work to schedule further interviews, that kind of thing. Um, but beyond the interview I have and then our team member has, that's where we typically, but the extent that we typically go to with interviewing. Um, it's really changed over time. I can think back 2 years ago where we would involve others across the organization that might work with our candidate in their tech writing role, but things have just changed, I think, probably for many companies. And so I feel like we've scaled back on the number of people that candidates talk to. So it works well. We've definitely found great candidates with that process. And we also have an online portal where where our candidates can also see information about the job. It's where they upload their application and their resume. And so I think that's also a useful thing for them. Um, so they can see information about our company and, like Ryan said, learn a little bit about us, about our role. Because I also like to share information with them so they can make a decision that's right for them as well. You know, they need to make sure this is a good fit and this is the role that works best for them.
Yeah, I've said sometimes it's a little bit like dating. You're getting to know each other and see if you'll be a good fit. So,
Absolutely.
Patrick, maybe turn to you. How many interviews are people doing if they're gonna join you?
Typically just one. We do the contractors, we interview them. We have the resumes, the writing assignment to whittle people down, and then we interview everyone, or not everyone, the ones that have the good writing assignment for the contractor type positions. And then to get hired on at Lockheed is very similar to what Wendy and Ryan were describing. Online portal, HR or recruiter, is the one that interacts primarily with the candidates. The hiring manager is the one that screens a lot of the resumes. After the recruiter does the initial screen, and you pick those out and do interviews. But yeah, typically just one interview.
So if you're doing one interview, I imagine that's pretty critical. One of the things that often comes up is candidates want to know what kinds of questions they should be asking, in that interview from their side. Do you have an idea for what type of questions you think are impactful for you as a hiring manager that would impress you?
I would kind of like Wendy was hitting on, interview the team that is interviewing you. So, what's a day in the life? What's the culture like at the team? What's important? What's the culture like at the company, to try and gauge if the work environment, the company is actually a good fit for what you believe in. You don't want to wind up at a company or in a position that, goes strongly against something that you believe in. That would be something I would suggest.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Ryan, thoughts from your side? Anything that would be a green flag?
I like when people ask about challenges. What am I getting into, pretty much, but worded nicer. But definitely, because that will sometimes get the manager off guard enough to really let their hair down sometimes, and really give you the insight to what you're getting into. Um, Sometimes you could ask, what are the challenges with the role? What does success look like? What does failure look like? Um, those types of questions where it shows that you care about succeeding, and you care about fitting in as much as they're wanting you to fit in.
Yeah, that's where that dating piece comes in. Wendy, anything that sticks out to you beyond that as something that you would want people to ask you or to ask the team?
I think they pretty much cover what I was gonna say. Just what does it look like a day in the job, and then what is successful? How do we measure that or determine that someone's being successful in their role? Those are probably the two main questions that I appreciate when people ask about that.
So then, Wendy, I'm going to ask you another question since you brought up writing samples, and I know we have some questions in the chat about portfolios. What types of documents would you want to see in someone's portfolio as their writing sample that would give you confidence in their skills?
Well, for me, so I work at a software company, and our job is writing release notes and also procedures and just how to use software systems. So what I like to see, and I try to interview technical writers who've had experience at a software company. So I'm really looking for writing samples that hopefully are a procedure that I can see clearly describe a task or some function that a user would perform with a system. So I'm looking for that to be well organized, um, clear, concise sentences that are easy to understand, um, showing that someone has interpreted the information or the product and distilled it so that it's easy for the reader or the end user. So primarily procedural type information.
Sounds like you're not just looking for the writing, but seeing how someone thinks about their work in the samples as well.
Right, absolutely. I want that critical thinking skill, that analysis. So I really value that ability.
So Ryan, since you're doing API docs, it's a little bit different, but what are things
Yeah.
that you would be seeing besides just show me your API docs in your
Yeah,
portfolio?
and that's really um unfortunately it's that plus it's also what portals did you support? So like most API writers, if they don't have the actual YAML files that they can share, they at least will have some kind of portal that that the company had that is public. Um, Sometimes it's difficult with API writing to show exactly what you can do because every company is going to want different levels of
Mm-hmm.
content for APIs. Um, but I would like to see. So for our writers, we were looking for did they just do API documentation? Did they do example breakdowns? Did they do sample code? That sort of thing. So it's a little tricky. But generically and in general, I would say again, tailor your, if possible, if you have enough in your arsenal to tailor what you send based on what matches what they're looking for. So if you had something, if you've done something in the fintech world and in transportation, but you're looking for a fintech company, don't send them the transportation information. Send them what exactly matches the area that's closer to what you're going to be doing. That's not always, especially if you're new to the role, or you're new to tech writing, coming right out of school. I've hired folks who use project work and articles they've written. Um, if you don't have content that's specific, then any content will do. Don't sell short. Honestly, if you wrote an article for your college newspaper, if that's what you have and that speaks to your abilities to create content, then send it in. Because I want to see that you're well rounded and see where your brain is as much as and you can get a lot from somebody's personality based on their writing. So even if it's boring tech writing, you can still get their personality in some areas, in some ways. So yeah, don't look down on your work as well. This was just this was just that. If it's what you have, that's what you have. It's better than nothing for certain.
Absolutely. I will say when I was hiring year before last, I did get a writing sample from 1997. It was dated. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, wow. It was like a archival piece of history at that point. But it was a good writing sample. So the writing still held. Patrick, do you look at writing samples or is it really about that exercise with the peanut butter and jelly sandwich?
That's primarily it, which is a procedural type thing. So if I didn't have that, I would be looking for procedures because that's a lot of what we do, whether it's remove and replace of hardware stuff, um, setting up new software. If you have to install a new computer and you have to install the new software that goes on it, you have to thoroughly document those steps so that someone can do it that's never done it before. So it's very, very heavily procedural based writing is what my team does.
So, based on the peanut butter and jelly scenario, should we just be looking at recipes as hardware documentation
Yeah,
at this point?
yeah, you could. Yeah.
All right, I'm keeping my eye on the time. I've got one more question for you before we'll go to the questions that have been submitted and open it up. How do you foresee the field of technical communication evolving in the future? So, either in the discipline or in how we work, anything you expect to change on the horizon?
I would say I'm going to jump in. I would say
Yeah.
AI is the absolute big thing. There's a huge focus and effort at Lockheed on figuring out how to make AI do our jobs easier. The mundane things. How to make the computer do them instead of a person spending a bunch of time doing a menial task that the computer could do much more efficiently, much more quicker, and much more accurately in a lot of cases.
Well, I have to ask a follow-up question. Do you think technical writing and technical communication is safe as a profession from AI?
Yeah, there's still stuff that an AI is not going to write a procedure. It or it
Well,
may,
it
the
may not do it
human
well.
may, yeah, the human may do the writing the procedure, but maybe the AI will do all the tagging in XML. So you're freeing the writer up to actually do the writing, not be a software coder at the same time. So they can just do what the writing part and let the computer figure out the tagging part, as an example.
Yeah, I definitely think we'll see automation of a lot of the repetitive tasks.
Mm-hmm.
Other panelists, things that stand out to you?
Yeah, I would say AI as well. And um, I know our company has an AI ethics committee. So, of course, they're focused primarily on the software developers and how they might use AI. But there is some looking at it from the technical communication perspective. And I know our team uses Madcap Flare and Madcap Central. And so I know Madcap has come out with their initial stages of using ChatGPT. So I found that very interesting. We aren't using it, but the way they explained it was not so much that it's going to take over and write about our software because it's not going to know it, but it can apply things like our style guide items or look for those things or summarize things. So there's so many other aspects to AI that can benefit and like Patrick said, maybe free up the writer to, focus on certain topics, whereas the AI can help with editing or formatting, all that kind of thing.
What about
I will add to the AI, but I'll also say that I think it will be it should be the tech writer and just in general content creators who will be feeding AI more so than AI is replacing us. Because like you just said, they don't know the software, so you get AI that is making stuff up because there's not good content for it. Um, so we'll be the ones creating the content that will be ingested by the AI at the front end. So I think our front ends will change, but I think the back end will stay written by people because that's just the only way to get it in there, pretty much. But I definitely see tech writing and marketing writing, content strategy and content experience, user experience, all melding together more as we see people starting to or realizing that content as a whole is important and wanting to put money into it, but not necessarily spreading money out over five different departments. I think we'll see more and more departments combining and streamlining their content processes and their content strategies over marketing content and technical content. At least I hope so, because I think that works the best. Maybe not for large enterprises, but definitely for smaller companies or for at the product level.
Yeah, I definitely think that's going to be a continuing shift in where we fit in an organization. It'll depend on the size and the industry, but I think there's
Mm-hmm.
something very encouraging about seeing that we provide value to a lot of different parts of our products and our systems and our customers as we move forward. So I'm gonna move it over to our questions. I think we'll go first to the ones that have been captured in the chat, but then if anyone has a question, feel free to unmute, turn on your video, raise your hand, or put it in the chat, and we'll make sure to ask our panelists. You can either ask a question of the whole panel, or if you have someone in particular you want to ask, feel free to call them out specifically. So I'm gonna go to Julia. Nope, I'm gonna go to the document Julia sent me. And I guess our first question, this might have been a joke, but this was from Rue. Emotional intelligence is a must-have as a writer, as a technical writer, which was with a smiley face. I know that was something that came up saying that you have to know how to work with other people. Thoughts on how to build that, maybe as a skill, if it's something that doesn't come naturally to people?
Well, I know that's something I bring up with my team members, or especially new team members, is understanding how to work with our SMEs or other product management folks. So since I've been around our company, I try to let them know, hey, this person might prefer interacting this way versus that way, or you might, do this to get the best or most responsive information from this person. So I just try to point out the importance of knowing how to interact with different people, and that different people may prefer different types of communications. Um, some prefer email or IM, that kind of thing. Or some, when we were in office, some people, it was definitely better just to go up and talk to them in person. So I just try to point out those things, and then introduce people to others, and kind of coach them along as they, for newer folks, coach them along as they get to know the others that they're working with.
Yeah. Ryan, I see you nodding along. Does that align with what
Yeah.
you think is a good way to approach it?
Yeah. Yes. However, I will also say that I use the analogy of tools. My youngest son is actually a mechanic, and he works for Mercedes, so they have very specialized tools for very specialized parts of the engine, and not every technical writer can do everything that every other technical writer does. So as the manager, I when I inherited the team, I worked hard to make sure that each person worked on the things that they could work on. They fit the teams that they worked with in terms of our agile teams. And then when I was hiring, we're going to see, and I think that it's always been a joke in STC for us. People have been there for a long time that there's no one there's no one who's neurotypical, and I think we'll see more and more of that. Um, uh, with people who are getting into the content world. So it may be you'll if you're not someone who feels comfortable um, working directly with someone, interviewing them, getting content from them every single day, then you can still work as a tech writer. There are still places out there for people, no matter what their um,
Comfort level?
whatever their yeah comfort level is with dealing with people. Um, and part of emotional maturity is understanding that about yourself, accepting that about yourself, and being able to communicate that to the people that you're interviewing with and that you're working with. Because we are consumers of technical information and we transform that. However, we are also their customers when it comes to um, when we're going to a development team, we should be way beyond where we have to take a beating from the developers just to get what we need. Uh, Content creators should stand up for themselves, and there's got to be a give and take with what you will how they should work with you as much as how you should work with them. So yes to everything she said, but also stand your ground if somebody's not treating you the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. For those who have known me, my previous role was working with Polish software developers. So for the first 3 months, I thought they all hated me because they were so direct in all of their feedback. So took me some time to learn my audience. Patrick, anything you would want to add on working with others or emotional intelligence?
I would just say if you're, working with others, appreciate the other person's time. Everyone's busy. So instead of sending them an email or trying to IM them or call them, set up a meeting with that person and have an agenda of what you're trying to get from them. So it's very structured. I need these 5 things. You set up the meeting, you go through them, boom, boom, boom. If it takes you 15 minutes, then you're done. You got what you need. It shows that you appreciate their time. They're more likely, to favorably, oh yeah, that person appreciated my time, and probably respond better, the next time. You're just building that relationship with the other person. It's all about relationship building.
Yeah, definitely. When we were in offices, it used to be about bribery, like with snacks. So now we have to up our game now that we're remote, get
Yep.
creative.
Right.
I know we have a few questions from Rue. I just wanted to pause to see if there were any other questions in the chat, or if anyone wanted to come on and ask a question.
I would like to ask a question.
Sure, please do.
So I'm a little bit at disadvantage because I am an international student, and since I am an international student, I haven't had work experience because a lot of companies don't like to hire people that are not residents or citizens. So the experience that I have is mostly, well, not mostly, it's 100% curricular. So it's based on the activities that I have engaged in my college at UCF. So I would like to ask the panel, what companies or what positions will you recommend to start my technical communication journey?
Good question.
I'm not sure, to be honest.
Yeah.
Not to be not helpful, but I'm not sure.
I would say, if honestly, there are a ton of translation companies who hire technical writers who are native speakers of whatever language that out there, and it's highly sought after. You just have to find the right companies, and there's a lot of them out there. Translation specialists. Some will hire people local to an area for localization, but others will hire experts in the language for just general. I mean, something like Spanish, assuming that's what you speak. I'm not. Um, as long as it's not very specific to any country, then and general Spanish and you can write in general Spanish, I think that would be a really good way to get into the tech writing field.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Okay, thank you.
And does the STC, they have a job board, is that right? So that might be a good lead.
We do have a job board. And I was also going to say, I know a lot of startups hire international people. So if you're willing to take a more, what I was going to say risky, what, Ryan, can you tell me I got the words right? What do we say? Like challenging, innovative.
Yeah.
Sometimes that could be an option.
A lot of U.S.-based companies have a difficulty hiring international folks who don't have who have to be sponsored. I honestly don't know a lot of companies that will hire technical writers who have to be sponsored on a visa, just because the economics don't work out in a lot of ways. That said, it's not impossible if you have the talent and can show someone that you are, good at what you do through samples that you create based on schoolwork or any kind of volunteer work, then that would get your foot in the door. But yeah, I mean, if you are planning on doing the work from another country, then I think it's a lot harder than if you have a visa or you're going past the citizenship in the U.S.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. I don't know the tech field in Venezuela. I don't know anything about it, so I
No,
can't
I
help there.
I'm not really planning to go back. I want
Okay.
to try to find something here.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know about Brazil. I just don't know how Venezuela.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anna. Any other questions? Okay, then I'll go back to one that Rue submitted. How do you take initiative when you don't have much work available to do or don't have access to training or ability to take on more responsibilities at work? So I think it's a how do you take the initiative when there's not much available to you?
I had so I had a recent candidate that actually took the initiative to set up a GitLab space and wrote all kinds of different writing content samples and published them on her GitLab that she had created. So she took the initiative to learn how to create this GitLab page, how to structure it, how to, so you could weave your way through it. She wrote different types of content to put on the GitLab page that she created while she was had another full-time job, was going to school to get a second degree. So that would be an example of initiative, to market yourself so that when you're interviewing, you can say, "Hey, I did this," and like it's there. It's initiative.
Do you think putting that time into learning
Mm-hmm.
proactively is part of it?
Yes.
Ryan, you have thoughts?
Yeah, if I'm not sure, UCF has a pretty big computer science department, right?
Oh, yes.
They have
Yes.
okay. I mean, if you don't have it as part of your classwork where you're documenting um, projects that engineering students are doing, then volunteer. Put out there on whatever boards that they have, whatever social media that the school uses. Volunteer to document their software. Um, and that would be a great way for you to actually show that you can work with a developer, you can work with new software, and be able to document it in a way that makes sense. But then also, Bethany mentioned, or yeah, Bethany mentioned writing articles for the newsletter is a great way to build your portfolio.
Yeah. And I was going to add the Future Technical Communicator Student Club at UCF does partner with IEEE, so with the
Yeah.
professional organization for, I should know what all the E's are. Sorry, I've forgotten, but I know there's engineering in there, and that includes the computer science students as well. Wendy, what would you recommend someone do to invest their time?
Well, for someone who's maybe in a new role or a new tech writing position, I think it's good to find ways that might be more efficient processes. So if you kind of take a look at how the work is being done and suggest better ways or different ways of doing something that would save time or create efficiency, or if you're working with any tools, content management, or any other systems, learn about those. If there are features of those tools that the team is not using that you think could be valuable, learn about those, present those to the team, and encourage use of features that the company or the team is not taking advantage of.
Mm.
Well, I feel gratified, Wendy, because that was what you let me spend my time on in my role when I worked for you.
Yeah, well, and that really makes a difference, and not everyone shows that initiative. And so it's something I know I really appreciate, and people should feel that they can take that initiative. So that's a great question, um, so that you don't just sit there and do only the job, but look for ways to improve things or suggestions you can make or that kind of thing.
One more thing is, if you volunteer with an organization outside of school or whatever, like I know that a lot of pet rescues, they need probably help writing their procedures down for new volunteers, and that'd be a great way for a tech writer, someone who's new to the field, to jump in to create something that is very procedural based and would look really good as a uh, writing sample or portfolio or experience even.
Yeah, that's a great call out, though. There's a lot of organizations beyond STC who are worthy and need help and would be a great partnership. So I think this kind of goes into Rue's next question. We talked a little bit about how to create portfolios, but I think the second part of our question was, how do you gain feedback and improve your portfolio when you don't really know what you're doing? And I think specifically as far as graphics are concerned. So what's a good way to get feedback on your samples?
Reach out to, if you're part of a mentoring program, or reach out to people that you're connected to on LinkedIn, especially if your samples are digital. Just ask.
Mhm.
I've looked at folks' resumes. I've looked at folks' portfolios to give them some feedback, even if it's just me looking at it for 10 minutes. It's like, yeah, that looks okay, or you might beef up this. I was a user experience manager for a while, and I worked with a someone putting together a PowerPoint of their UX proposals and everything, and it was very rewarding to me to be able to help, but it helped them put together their presentation when they were going for job interviews. So just reach out to folks on LinkedIn.
I did recently, and the people who sent me direct messages, I might have to broaden my search, because the people who reach it out to me, they're they're copywriters, but they're not technical writers. I'm like, I don't think that, I mean, they
Yeah.
could, yeah, that's not.
Are you in some of the tech writing groups in LinkedIn?
Um, I
That might be a way to reach out, or even
don't.
some Facebook groups. I know I'm a member of a content strategy one. I'm not sure if I'm a LinkedIn one. I mean, a tech writing one on Facebook, but I mean, the every once in a while you'll see an STC chapter doing a proposal. I mean, portfolio review session,
Hmm.
and just search that to see if there's one upcoming. I think most chapters these days have their meetings virtual, or at least have a virtual part of it. But that might be a way to do it. And if you are going to the summit or that's another thing. Volunteering at the summit as a student is always great if you can do that. It may be past the time to volunteer, but a lot of the conferences will do student volunteers for free. And while you're there, you can meet people that you would want to pass your resume, your portfolio to.
I think it is past the deadline, and no longer a student. That's been
Okay.
9 years. Oh my God.
You can also measure time in the growth of Ryan's children if you'd like.
You can do that. Yep. They're like tree rings.
Yeah. So I just put in there in the chat if we have any other questions. I do have a few others I prepared I can ask, but I want to make sure just had a moment in case anyone has something they want to unmute and ask on the call.
Can I add you guys on LinkedIn? Okay.
All right, you heard it here. Our panelists are open to LinkedIn connections. Okay, well, I thought I'd ask maybe one that could be a little bit more fun. We've talked a bit about interviews. Have you ever had an interview go wrong? Anything that's one that's stuck in your head? I'll say one that stuck with me last time I was hiring was when I asked a question about how would you approach revising a document when you have feedback from a SME, and I was told that's a really hard question. I said, okay, can you answer it? And she said, no.
Okay.
It's I think about it when I lie awake at night sometimes. least she was assertive.
Oh,
Anyone else have things that have stuck with you, good or bad?
I had one. One of the questions, if our conversation's not flowing and I have to ask questions, then I will always say, "What did you do in high school for money?" Or "What did you do? Yeah, what was your jobs in high school?" Um, and I respect things like, I focused on studies, I worked at the local restaurant, I did sports, whatever. This person said, "I was daddy's angel, so I didn't have to work." Yeah.
Oh,
wow.
Did,
how do you
yeah.
how do you
Yeah.
respond to
No.
that?
Yeah. So, yeah. Sometimes being too honest is bad.
Could be, could be. Patrick, any for you that have stuck in your mind?
Mm, no, not
Maybe
really.
that's a
And
good thing.
yeah, it's I haven't most of the ones that we've done, over the last 4 or 5 years have been really good with the way that we've been, soliciting people from UCF,
Mhm.
STC, FTC, that younger kind of targeted audience people has really led to good candidates, through the PBG exercise. We actually wind up with pretty good people that we interview, and we haven't had any alarming, type
No
of
horror stories.
no horror stories. Actually, everyone's, a lot of them, most have been really good.
Do they tend to be pretty conversational for you as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
Wendy, I know you've done a good bit of hiring in recent years.
Right, yeah, I'm trying to think of anything that sticks out. I know probably the things that turn me away from someone is someone who just is so brief in their response. They don't seem to want to talk. Or every once in a while you get someone who just doesn't stop talking. They feel like they have to tell you everything about themselves. So I know occasionally we'll have someone like that, and I appreciate that they're trying to do a good job and share important information, but sometimes they have to remember to listen to the question and not tell me everything about themselves.
You're not looking for a monologue
Right.
in your interviews. You want a conversation?
Right, exactly. Yes.
Do you have any questions that you always like to make sure to ask outside of one specific about the job? I know I'm thinking, Wendy, of one of our former colleagues, Kathy, who used to always ask people how they load a dishwasher because she felt that was the way to reveal how someone approaches a task. Not that there was a right or wrong answer, but well, the only wrong answer was saying, I don't know and I don't care, I believe.
Well, I know I always just like to ask, and it's not especially original, but what led them to technical writing? What interests them about it, and what do they enjoy about it? And that's something I always ask everybody.
Yeah, Ryan, anything that you tend to include in your conversations?
Always want to know, if they weren't doing tech writing, what would they be doing?
Mm,
So,
I'll say. I assume there's no wrong answers to that question.
no, it's just to see. Well, sometimes it'll tell you if they're going to be a tech writer very long, like if they're using it as an entry to be a product manager or something, or you can kind of see where their careers are going to go possibly. But then sometimes you can, somebody tells me they would be, I don't know. There's a lot of answers that could be a wrong answer. I'll just put it that way.
Oh,
That probably would not fit with our team, depending on what they say. But there's probably not a really bad answer as long as they're passionate about it.
as long as they care, as long as they're invested
Yeah.
in something, as long as it's not Daddy's Angel, you're pretty
Yes.
happy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, Patrick, is there a question you like to ask to get to know people?
Um, Towards the end, we ask, do they hope to get out of the position? Because a lot of times we ask it as a contractor people that we're bringing in, so just trying to get what they're trying to get out of it.
Yeah, so you have a sense of what they're trying to accomplish beyond just, I would like a paycheck. Very much, thank
Exactly.
you.
Yeah. Yep.
So pause again. Anyone else have a question you want to unmute and ask? There's no wrong questions. As you know, there's only one wrong answer established so far. Okay, well then, I was going to ask one, since we have folks who are coming into tech writing from different professions, different experience levels. For you, if someone doesn't have tech writing experience, do you think having additional, like pursuing a technical certificate, technical writing certificate of some time, or further education would be helpful in securing a position if they don't have formal education or experience at this point? Knowing people can have other experience that's related to tech comm, like people who are writers or have other things in their background.
Well, sure. I know I've received applications for people who haven't necessarily much technical writing experience, but they've done writing in other types of roles or research, or someone who's even been a teacher. So there's a lot of similar skills, I think, in some of those roles, but it's certainly always good to, get involved in a professional organization. So if you're pursuing technical writing, get involved in STC, or like you said, if there's a certificate or professional program that you can complete, that's definitely a plus as well, because that shows that you're serious about that type of role and that career path.
Yeah. I'm starting to see more people who have, and I think it's because salaries in tech com have gone up to where in a lot of cases it matches what a software engineer makes. Um, so I see a lot of people moving from software engineering to technical communication more so than we used to. But particularly part of your question, I think, was, are there any certifications people should go for if they don't have
Yeah,
the
is it
background?
something you...
Honestly, I don't look for that.
Mhm.
I don't look at their degree really, because it's not an indicator. In my experience, the degree is not an indicator of success. What in our field. Um, so, um, I mentioned it before. Sometimes it could help with going from a brand new person to a fully functional tech writer. Sometimes it lowers the curve there. But I've had ex lawyers, like you said, teachers. I've had engineers, moms. I had a lady who got a degree, went to, she was a mom for 15 years, stay-at-home mom for 15 years, and had an English degree, but did all of the documentation for PTO and PTAs throughout her kids' years, and she was an amazing tech writer. So, it's really more about what you do than what you learn than in your certification when it comes to that. So I would spend time doing the work instead of studying for tests. That's
Yeah,
just my opinion.
oh no, your opinion is law, Ryan, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's on the
Thank
recording,
you.
so yeah, we
All
can
right, good.
declare it here. No. Uh, Patrick, from your perspective, degree versus experience versus other sorts of education?
Yeah, I don't think the type of degree is as important as the doing the work. Like I am in the process of hiring a contractor who's a current teacher. She was the person I was mentioning that did the GitLab, did all that work to create her own GitLab thing and her own portfolio. It's all about that initiative and documenting things and um, doing the work like Ryan was saying.
Yeah, so invest the time in growing your own skills and your experience on your own if you don't have it available to you in the
Yep.
profession. Yeah, it seems like to be the overarching advice.
Yep.
So I don't need to go back to school and get a master's degree.
I'm not going to say no, but I'm not going to say that it's necessary for certain. I mean, I don't have a master's, and I've been doing this for a very long time. Um, and my bachelor's is in creative writing from the University of South Carolina, so that's worth what?
It's a degree.
um, yeah, I mean, really, I mean, it comes down to it. Finishing a degree or doing a degree is all about doing the work and learning how to learn. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, it is a way to, if you can go and if you could take classes online, there are so many free classes and even some that you pay a little bit. Um, that's worthwhile to learn, especially in the tech industry. Like if you were going, if you're seeing more and more API jobs opening up out there, API writing, taking a class on Open API, um, taking a class on how APIs work as in whole, the difference between REST and SOAP and all that sort of thing. That would get you a lot more than spending thousands of dollars on a college education, additional or advanced degree, um, that will tell you the theory of doing stuff in a lot of cases.
Fair.
Yeah. Right. Uh, just I'm gonna check with Julia. Did I get the questions we have seen so far from the chat?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. I haven't seen any others so far, so feel free to put them in. Otherwise, I'm gonna follow up on a little bit of the talk we had on AI. So I'm curious for our panelists, have you done any writing with an AI tool in your, maybe even if not in your professional experience, but just as something to try?
I have not.
I haven't either.
Just playing around with it. But we did have when you're being acquired by a huge company like Visa, we're always worried about the eyes that are on our company and on our documentation. So I think everybody was stressed out about that. And then we had the CTO of our sorry, cat interrupted me. We the CTO of our division, I guess you would call it, said in an open call with people his level and that our documentation was how API documentation should be because he can plug it into his AI platform and it spits out code that works. So that was great to hear from our team for our team. So that's been our brush with AI, but I've done it for fun, writing cover letters, writing descriptions for like tabletop games. Having AI or Chat GPT write a description of a room just because my brain's fried worked out really well for me and the people I was running a game for. Um, and but we're looking into tools right now, but we haven't picked anything or started using it.
So I know with we've had a lot of recent layoffs in tech, and it's been a difficult time in the job market. Do you still feel pretty positive about our profession? Would you think technical communication is a good field for people to choose as a career?
I think so, yes, absolutely. I mean, I know we're sounding mostly related to tech, but there's so many other fields that employ technical communicators. So be open to that, I would say, because I'm sure there's still great opportunity in other fields.
We're seeing a lot more things like content designer, uh, user experience writers, where they're part of, in my opinion, they're part of the tech com umbrella. They just don't always admit that they are. Um, so doing part of that research when you're looking at all those different job posts, really look into the nitty gritty of what they're actually asking for. And a lot of times you'll see they're wanting a person with tech writing skills who can also, be very specific about the words they use.
Yeah.
Bethany, I have to go pick up my daughter. I'm gonna rejoin on my phone, but I just want to. I'm gonna drop off camera.
Okay, we will set you free. And it's sad we didn't get to see your cat, but that's okay.
Oh, that's all right. Well, there's one laying on the chair back there. He's gray and he matches the gray chair. But
Okay,
you
good.
can kind of see him back. He's been there the whole time asleep. But
Oh
the other
man,
one just ran by,
I'm
hit
usually
me,
good at
and
spotting
kept
them.
going.
All right, well, thank you. We'll keep an eye out for you to rejoin us.
Okay, thanks.
So I guess, Patrick, I'll come to you. You feel optimistic about our profession?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's still like AI is not going to take over the human part of the writing. They may take over the mundane parts, like I was saying earlier. Whether it's we use Arbor text, everything's in XML, so they could take AI may take over the tagging part and let the writer focus on the writing. But I don't think the computer's gonna start writing stuff. So
I will
yeah,
say when you
Right.
kind of paused when AI take over the human, I was like, race? Oh no.
yeah,
You're
race.
part of yeah, all of it.
Yeah,
This is I know that was one of the worries with AI coming in is that it
yeah,
might be like a Skynet, right?
yep.
Where
Skynet.
it'll destroy us. So far it hasn't proven to be very successful if that's what it's planning.
No, yeah,
Knowing that AI is not actually a unified experience. Um, I worked for a company that did AI and machine learning products. So I'll say, having been on that side of the curtain, I'm not too worried about the future of technical writing because a lot of our work is thinking from my
hmm
perspective, and it's never going to know how to think. It can just generate text and others and code and other sorts of things. It doesn't know how to do all of the work that we do to make sense of information and provide context and know our audiences. So I'm not too worried either. Right. Checking in for other questions. Anything folks want to ask? Hey, well, for our panelists then, let me go back to my prepared questions. A lot of companies use applicant tracking systems to, go through resumes and kind of pre-screen them. Do you review all of the resumes you receive yourself, or are those reviewed by someone else or through an ATS before you get to them?
The contractor ones, I review all of those. So we hired a batch of people back in the fall. I think we had 25 resumes, nowhere near as many as Ryan had. But then through the Lockheed system, there's an automated system and a recruiter that screens them before they get to me.
Yeah, I go through all the resumes that are submitted. I don't think our system has any automated screening or anything beforehand. So I do try to go through all the resumes that come in.
So one thing that usually comes up, oh, we have a question. What does the automated screening look for? Keywords when it's in
Yeah.
use. Ryan, do you have something you want to add about screening?
When I was with Cisco, they did have a screening. It did not look for keywords. It filtered out things like location. So like um, if it was remote and someone was trying to apply from Russia and it was only U.S. based, then it would disallow it. So um, that was the only filtering it did.
Yeah, I'll share that my company does software for staffing and like recruitment firms, and you're going to see a lot more, I think, AI involvement in screening as the years go on. So don't be alarmed. I think a lot of that's going to be doing things like Ryan mentioned, doing a better job of making sure we have applicants that actually are eligible for the roles they're submitting for and helping hiring managers focus on people who are actual candidates for their positions. We do have a question from Marilyn. What is a good example of a technical writing document for engineering? I would like to work on a document alongside my engineer friends, but I'm not sure where to start. It's a great question.
I don't know how to answer that. And that
I was gonna say engineering documents everywhere I've worked, everything is called something different. And you have to learn the new acronyms.
So what kind of engineering is
Yeah.
it?
I guess that'd be a question. Software, hardware, there's electrical, there's all kinds of engineering. So maybe that's the place to start is what kind of work are the engineers doing? Because that might lead you to what needs to be documented. Patrick, anything you would want to know or ask to kind of hone in on what
Same
would be a
thing,
good place to start?
what type of engineering is it? What are the engineers doing that you're trying to document? Are they, building something? Are they
They writing code.
writing code? Is there GUIs, that you have to capture? It really depends on what the engineers are doing, but just trying to document the process so somebody else could use what they're creating, or if they're building something, how to install it. So if they're building something, you'd want to make sure that you're gathering all the items required, just the organizing your document, so it makes sense.
Yeah, I'd say defining the terminology they're using is always a good place to start too.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And if you have fun working with one, find another one that's in a different area. So find a hardware engineer and then help them, and then find a software engineer and help them.
Yeah, this was pointed out as engineer friends, so I think we're also advocating this case for shopping for friends with that represent
Yeah,
different disciplines.
exactly. Grow
You
that
find
network
Grow
while
your
you're in
network.
school.
find a
No, why not?
mechanical engineer.
You
Yeah.
know, that's why. So a lot of companies will reach out to students and make relationships with students because they want to grow their network from the ground up. The same thing should be done with students. Make friends with people who you will continue to be work friends with, or not work friends, but industry friends with after graduation.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely have people that I worked with or want to work with because we've grown up together in the profession and came through the UCF program. I know that's true for a lot of Lockheed people who've been through the Lockheed process as well, that you stay very connected, especially if you remain in Central Florida. So keep an eye on the time. I think we're right about at the end here. So I am going to take it to our last slide. I want to thank everyone for joining us for our annual employment panel, but I especially want to thank our three panelists. So Wendy, Patrick, and Ryan, thank you for joining us. Always glad to have you, join the Florida chapter for an event. I'm sorry that virtual round of applause is just something we haven't really figured out. We could do the Zoom reactions to remind myself where those are, but I know it's not quite the same as being live in a room, but you get the little clapping hands. So thank you for being here, bringing your expertise, sharing your knowledge and experience. We're really hoping that this will help people, get hired or, find the next position that's right for them or just continue to grow in their role where they are. So for those who are, STC Florida chapter members, we're happy to have you. And if you're not, reminder that you can join STC and our community. And also, we'll have upcoming events. We'll be sending those out, but we do have our regular virtual networking meeting, which will be next one is April 10th. That's free to join. Come anytime. And then we'll also have our chapter meeting coming up, which is on AI. Julia usually can remind me exactly on the date. Otherwise, you will see it by email.
I am looking for it. I have to get the right spreadsheet.
I'm notorious for getting the date wrong, so Julia keeps me honest. Also, she's our program planner. So that'll be an upcoming chapter meeting. We'll send more details. So if you want to learn more about what AI looks like in TechCom, you'll get to ask an expert.
That is on April 11th.
April 11th. So that will be our next official educational meeting. Thank you to everyone who submitted questions. And again, thank you to our panelists. We're glad you're here with us. So take care, everyone, and we'll see you at the next one.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.